cannot believe that my camera has the audacity to have 36% right now. We're about to record our magnum opus. 36%. But since I'm on borrowed time, I guess, hello my internet friends. Welcome back to another video. Thank you for your patience as I record sporadically. Life is lifing right now, and booktube is not one of my highest priorities, but we have come back. We have awakened from our slumber because we are ready to film what I am calling my magnum opus. I have 6 character traits that I had disclosed publicly to the internet. What are they? I wrote them down. Reading, writing, travel, fictional murderous women, cannibalism, kind of a sub-category to fictional murderous women, and my love for a very specific author. An author who is but a blip in the YouTube, booktube sphere. If you are new here, you have no idea who I'm talking about, and if you are returning, you must have known that this was coming. This is essentially a prophecy. I've talked about this man enough on this channel before. It is the Kevin Wilson video. We have made it. So to any new people who just clicked on this out of pure curiosity, I'm gonna give you a recap. To every actual subscriber, you already know who Kevin Wilson is because I've talked about him enough, but you must be patient just in case there's someone new. You must be patient for the new people. So Kevin Wilson is my favorite author. There's something that draws me to him and draws me to his books that is not impossible to explain, but it's going to take, I'm gonna say, an hour. My hope with this video is to convince more people to give him a chance, if only so that I can have more people to talk about his books with, because there's so many thoughts and feelings and opinions that I need to express about his works, but I have no one to do them with. And you know, like, this is a favor for my best friends who have had to sit through many phone calls about Kevin Wilson, and they are so done with me. They're so done. And so we are here today. I'm going to convince you to at least give Kevin a shot and join the fandom, be a part of this experience, have opinions about him that we can discuss together. Selfishly, the reason why we're doing this is because I really need more people to talk about Kevin Wilson with. But here's what's in it for you. I think that Kevin is a fascinating person. His work is so odd, but also so specific and also so funny. And I think that no matter how you feel about his books, whether you like them, whether you dislike them, you're going to have opinions about them. And because I'm already here, you don't have to move through the world wondering where you are going to find someone willing to sit through a 1 hour long discussion about him. You just already have that. And we're gonna have such a tantalizing conversation back and forth, I promise you. And the way we're gonna do this is that I have read every single one of Kevin Wilson's books. This is actually well timed because he has one more coming out. It comes out May 13th. It's called Run for the Hills. I have read every single one of his books available to me, and I have opinions about each of them, and I have ranked them in the order that I think that you should read them to give you the best chance of also becoming part of the Kevin Wilson fandom. And so I'm so excited to bring this video to you today. So ready? Let's begin! First one of his books is his debut novel, which is called The Family Fang. The Family Fang and I have a long, beautiful history together. I've talked about this before on my channel. I found a copy of this book, not this one specifically, in a giveaway pile in an artist studio. I was working for an experimental artist. She worked in this artist studio, and there was a giveaway pile in the center, and I was basically shifting through the unwanted objects of very interesting artists. And one of those objects was a copy of this book, not this one specifically. I'll get to that in a minute. And because I was an avid reader, I thought that this was a fun, quirky way to find a book. It felt like a no-risk situation. If I didn't like it, I would just put it back. No harm, no foul. But I ended up loving it. And the combination of both, just the quirky way this book came into my life, and also the fact that it was just unlike anything I had read at the time, really cemented it as one of my favorite books. As I transitioned from my early 20s into my mid-20s as a struggling artist, this book also was a comfort to me as I was navigating like the earliest years of my quarter-life crisis. And so this book, 10 years later, will always have a special place in my heart. You know, also another kind of beautiful story about the Family Fang is that it's the reason why I have 100 subscribers. Earlier this year, I posted a video begging people to read my favorite book, and enough of you did that it got me the most subscribers a single video has ever gotten. It was like 7. I know, it was crazy. Anyway, to all the new folk out there, let's go through the Family Fangs. So the Family Fang is about a family of performance artists whose art of choice is sort of subversive performance art. This family will go out into public spaces like a mall and just cause chaos. They want to cause something quirky and odd to happen. I've described it kind of as a YouTube prank show, except they would make more money if they built it that way. They go on to create kind of memorable, odd experiences that say something about society or just seem like a quirky, odd thing for the participants to remember and wonder what the hell that was about. And that's the conceit of their art. And the two kids, Buster and Annie, are almost always the focal point of that art. And the story follows the two kids who have gone through their childhood in this extremely chaotic, unstable environment and how that has impacted them. And this is all the backstory. We meet Buster and Annie again in their adult lives and seeing how their upbringing has shaped them. We meet them just as they're both reaching kind of a rock bottom moment that forces them to move back in with their parents, a place that they have tried really desperately to escape, even though they are adults. Like, toxic parents are gonna toxic parent, and their lives are so much healthier without them in it. However, you know, sometimes you can't pay your rent anymore. So, you know, they really are in dire circumstances when they move back in with their parents. Relatable. If you're someone who doesn't like to go into a book knowing that much about it, I think this is a good place to stop. I'm gonna reveal one more thing about the plot of the book, and it's not the biggest spoiler in the world. It probably is even like on like the inside blurb of the book jacket, but I picked up this book without even reading the back of it. So I was just along for the ride. So if you're a along for the ride kind of person, then like you can skip ahead a little bit, but I'm gonna add in one more detail for the people who don't care. At like the midway point, something happens. The parents leave for a weekend trip to go make art, as they say, and they don't come back. And instead, Buster and Annie get a call from the police saying that their parents are missing. It seems like there are signs of a struggle, and it is entirely possible that they are dead. And to Buster and Annie, who know their parents deeply well, this feels implausible. This smells a lot like their parents making mischief. And so the book turns from a character study into a murder mystery, where the mystery is, are the Fangs actually dead? From the people that I've recommended this book to, like this murder mystery turning point is like when the book gets really good for them. So overall, like the reasons why I love this book are that it asks a lot of interesting questions, like what is art, and also a lot of ethical questions about what is okay to do in service of your art. What is the impact of art, of seeing it versus being like a participant in it. I think that this book was also like surprisingly prophetic in a way that I don't think Kevin could have expected. And yet like the questions that are being asked in the Family Fang are things that we're certainly asking right now with family vloggers and family channels and also like prank channels. All those questions I feel like are exactly the same. Like, you know, like the difference between watching like a content family like do a prank on each other is very entertaining as us the viewer, but what is it like for the actual participant, especially when that participant is a kid, having to live in that unstable environment day in and day out. That thought is really interesting, and I think that conversation ages very well. Also, the book is really funny. I think that Kevin is very good at writing like situational humor. To show you what I mean, allow me to just read you some sections of the book. Come on, 36%, don't fail me now. Okay, we charged the camera, we're at 82%, and that should be good enough to get us through what I want to get through. On the opening night of the Hazard County High School production of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Buster was going to play Romeo. His sister Annie was to play Juliet. Other than Buster, no one backstage seemed to understand that this was a problem. "Let me ask you something, Buster," said Mr. Delano, the high school drama teacher. "Have you ever heard the phrase, 'the show must go on'?" Buster nodded. "Well," Mr. Delano continued, This is the kind of moment for which that phrase was coined. I'm gonna read to you one more. I read this line before in a different book review talking about the Family Fang, but I do think it also is a better example of the humor in this book. This is kind of Buster's rock bottom moment where he has to call his parents because he has nowhere else to go and nowhere else to turn to. "I'm in a bad way, Mom," he said. "Oh no," she said. "What's wrong, Buster?" "I'm in Nebraska," he said. "Oh, that is bad," she cried. "Why are you in Nebraska?" "Yeah, so I need your help. I got shot in the face and—" "What?" she shouted. "You got shot in the face?" His father's voice came on the line. "You got shot in the face?" he asked. "It's okay. It was a potato." "What was a potato?" Mr. Fang asked. "I got shot in the face with a potato," Buster said. I just love the potato gun sequence so much. Also, just like in terms of like kicking off your lifelong obsession with Kevin Wilson, I think there's so many things that you're being introduced to here that give you a really fascinating glimpse into Kevin's mind. Like the specificity of the plot itself, and then you have the many like different art installations, art performances that the Fangs do. You have the plot of the movie that Annie, who is an actress, ends up starring in, which is about this family of children that burst into flames. You have these like really specific paintings that Camille Fang creates that are odd and horrific and specific all at once. And there's so many like kind of really specific art things that just seem so inventive in a way that like you can't help but wonder about the person who created those things. I'm gonna read aloud to you some of them. In the inside pocket of his father's jacket, Buster found a digital recorder the size of a stick of chewing gum. He pressed the play button and listened to his father's voice, serious and slow, say, "We live on the edge, a shanty town filled with gold seekers. We are fugitives, and the law is skinny with hunger for us." Buster, stunned by the strangeness of it, pressed repeat, turned up the volume, and held this matchstick of a device to his ear, as if listening to the radio static for the voice of a long-dead lover. "And the law is skinny with hunger for us," the recorder said, and Buster took out a pen, opened to the title page of his novel, and scribbled down the phrase so he could see the arrangement of the words on paper. He had an image of a plantation ruined with flame from a slave uprising long since abandoned. He saw a group of people, barely adults, ragged and lean, prying open the boards that covered one of the windows and spilling into the mansion like an infestation. He saw them making weapons out of bone and wood, everything sharp points, and patrolling the grounds, the fields newly planted with marijuana, wild dogs running up and down the deep furrows in the ground. I love this scene because, you know, like when I write things, I could pull inspiration out of anything. If you give me something, I will create a tale out of it, and I love seeing that process here, just being given something, anything, and then creating a whole world out of it and having like specific details. I even like love his imagery of here of spilling into the mansion like an infestation. I love the use of the word infestation there. It feels so specific. There's something really rhythmic about his writing that I enjoy. So to give like kind of a final pitch about The Family Fang, it was unlike anything I had read at the time. As a book that takes place in the normal world, it is unlike anything I've ever read, anything I've ever imagined. I love the way Kevin talks about writing. I love the way he talks about art, the passion of creating something, the reasons why people create. And that is my gentle, totally not overblown long pitch to you to read my favorite book. I don't know when I'm gonna mention this. I said before that this isn't my original copy of The Family Fang. I have 2 copies of The Family Fang. So hold on a second. Where is it? Oh God. The last time I went to grab this book, my whole bookshelf collapsed and it sounded like I had died off screen. Don't worry about that. My bookshelf is falling. I should address that 1 second. So this was the original copy of the book that I found in a giveaway pile when I was 20 years old. And this is the hardcover certified signed copy that my best friend on BookTube got for me. It has a little certificate that says that Kevin Wilson himself signed it. Thank you, Rosica. This is the second best gift I've ever gotten related to Kevin Wilson. The first is a custom hat that my best friend got me that says the Kevin Wilson Fan Club on it. I don't know where the hat is, and it's really frustrating me. Don't tell my best friend. It's in this house somewhere. I think I left it somewhere in this house, and my mom probably like put it like in our hat pile, so I had to go dig through that to get it. But yeah, so if I talked for too long about this book, it's because I had a lot to say, but I promise all the other books are not going to be like that. So the second book I want to recommend to you on your Kevin Wilson journey is Nothing to See Here. Nothing to See Here follows a young woman named Lillian, who is kind of like the epitome of untapped potential. She grew up with a single mom in a really poor neighborhood, but she was incredibly smart, and she was able to get a scholarship to go to this preppy boarding school, and this was almost seen as like her ticket out. This was almost seen as the stepping stone to bigger things. It was a really big deal for her to be at this school. For the rich kids whose parents could afford to be here, this was nothing. This was just a thing that they had to do before they stepped into the lives that were laid out for them with their parents' wealth. But for Lillian, this was a huge opportunity to have access to opportunity that wasn't available to her previously. In high school, she meets her best friend Madison, who is like the daughter of a very rich person. And you know, despite their very different upbringings, they are best friends. But then things collapse in their friendship when Madison is caught with drugs, and her family convinces Lillian to take the fall for it. Lillian is expelled. These opportunities dry up for her, and she never bounces back from them. And so in her adult life, she is stuck emotionally, financially, in like the future that she had tried really hard to escape. And this is all backstory. So fast forward to the present. After years of not seeing each other, Madison reaches out to Lillian with a job opportunity. Basically, Madison is about to marry into old money, and her husband is running to be a US senator. There's a slight problem, which is that his first wife has recently died, leaving him in the care of 2 children. And those children sometimes burst into flames. Lillian's job is to basically be the caretaker for these children and make sure that no one kind of catches wind of the fact that these children catch fire. This book actually has like a bit of like traction on BookTube. I see it pop up occasionally. I swear to God, Jack Edwards bought this book in a thrift shop. And of course he did, because this cover is so tantalizing. He hasn't mentioned it since then, so I don't think he read it, but I swear to God, Jack Edwards had this book. I would wager that it's his most commercially successful book because that cover is so good, but I also think that it's narratively his tightest story. A lot of his books are paced on the slower side, and I think this one is probably the fastest paced. Considering that this is a book about combustible children, I actually think that this is his most conventional novel. Like, for a book about combustible children, that's not really what I think about when I think about this book. It's a book about wealth inequality, it's about privilege, unrequited love. There's so many things that this book is about, and none of it is about spontaneous combustion. Also, you're gonna start to notice this. It's almost like this book was like Easter egged into the Family Fang, because there's like a reference to this like indie film that Annie is going to star in that features combustible children. And then you see this cover of this book, you're like, what's Kevin doing right now? So you start to notice like things that he returns to as themes, and spontaneous combustion is one of them. He actually talks about that in an interview, that combustion is one of his like lifelong fascinations. He said in an interview, I was an anxious kid and I had all this agitation inside me, and so it made sense that I just assumed I might burst into flames. It seemed entirely possible. And then as I got older and became a teenager and my anxiety became kind of more understandable, I kind of wanted to burst into flames, like that would burn out all of the anxiety inside me and I'd be kind of clean. Knowing children, I have 2 little boys, and I think children, when they have tantrums or even when they're agitated, they look like they're about to combust. It's entirely possible to me that my boys might burst into flames. Also, something that Kevin mentions in other interviews is that he was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome as an adult. When he was a kid, like that feeling like manifested, and like he would have like these like looping thoughts that he couldn't really shake. That's also going to be something that comes up in his work a lot, like obsessions, things that you can't get out of your mind. That feeling of like this agitation, this like pent up energy of feeling like he's going to combust, that is charts manifesting in him, and him writing about these things like helped him release that energy. And as you continue in like your Kevin Wilson journey, you're gonna see that like very present. Like you're gonna see like obsession and like fixation as something that is like another big thing in his work. I think that Nothing to See Here is probably like his best book. It's certainly his best paced book. It also gives you like, you know, a deeper understanding of Kevin. I really like this book. I think it's the tightest one, and I think it leads you like into like the Kevin Wilson obsession. So speaking of obsessions and fixations, this next book on your Kevin Wilson journey is going to feature a lot of that. Up next, I'm going to recommend you his short story collection, Tunneling to the Center of the Earth. This is Kevin's first short story collection. This is also the second book of his that I read, and I think this is what kicked off my obsession with him. Similar to the Family Fang, I saw so many like weirdly specific scenarios in his short stories I never would have imagined. But I also saw like repeating themes from the Family Fang, and I found it so fascinating. I never read an author that would return to the same ideas over and over. I never read an author that loves spontaneous combustion that much. So that was like one really fascinating thing to me. I also like, I don't really know how to explain why I love this story collection other than reading aloud some excerpts to you, so allow me to do that now. Hold on. So first, I want to read to you the intro that is only available in the audiobook. And I had to borrow the audiobook, and I had to transcribe this word for word so I could give it to you. And I'm not a good transcriber, so it involved a lot of pausing, but it felt important to me that you listen to this. Writing a novel is like buying a car, thanks to a reasonable loan and taking that car on a long trip, feeling a sense of peace that you're heading somewhere, but you're not there yet. The world is so open you might not even arrive at the place you intended, but you'll end up somewhere different from where you started. But short stories for me are like stealing a car, driving it as fast as you can, and crashing it into a tree, knowing you are always going to do that very thing. And then you crawl out of the car, which is now mangled and smoking, and you realize you aren't dead, that you are still alive, and you look at the car and it's beautiful, and you walk away. Novels are the chances for me to explore those obsessions in different ways, to see where they go, to live with them. But short stories are about relieving that pressure in my body, keeping me from breaking down. I don't know what it is about that line, but I deeply relate to it. I deeply relate to fixating on something like an image or a scene and not being able to rest until it's out of my head. Like in my own writing, I'll just imagine a scene over and over and over again. And then when I write something down, like I feel it release from my body. Like, and I can go back to that scene, I can tweak it. And sometimes I'll just revisit it again just because I enjoy seeing it play out in my brain like my favorite movie. But when I write it down, I feel a release. Maybe it's not quite so tragic as looking at a car crash and finding beauty in it, but there is something I relate to there. And when I read the short stories in this collection, I can almost see like the curiosity of like having an idea for a scene and watching it play out. Like I can feel this sentiment of short stories are a beautiful car crash in Kevin's stories. I wasn't planning on reading out this line, but actually it literally leads into what I was talking about. I work for Worst Case Scenario Inc. I have a degree in catastrophe from a small college in the Northeast where I learned all the ways that things fall apart. I am a field agent in what could happen. I go to amusement parks and punch numbers into my computer and tell them how many people could die on a ride, what we call an absolute disaster. I calculate what would happen if a city bus full of people was taken hostage and then got stuck in a freak blizzard during rush hour traffic. You even have ways to determine how many people would be killed if a disgruntled ex-employee came back to take revenge on his former co-workers. I tell the businesses all of these horrible things that could happen, and they pay me large sums of money. They usually are very concerned when I leave, very sad, but I cannot do anything for them. I can only tell them how it might happen, not to prevent it. They need another consulting firm for that. Another thing that I really like about this book is that I deeply relate to is like the themes of obsession, of fixation that I was talking about earlier. Being fascinated by something and you don't even understand why, and it's very difficult to explain to other people. That is a theme that comes up a lot, and that's a theme that I relate to really deeply. And I think if we're on booktube, like certainly we are all like passionate about books, and I can't possibly be the only person that has called up their best friend for an hour to explain the plot of a book to them and then why they hated it, right? I can't imagine that's an original experience. And I think if you've ever had that feeling, that this short story collection in particular will scratch a relatable itch for you. Here, I'm gonna read to you something else. This is from a story called The Museum of Whatnot. It is Wednesday afternoon, which is why the doctor is here. He is a regular, one of those whom I can count on, no matter how few people step into the museum each week. He comes in every Wednesday during lunch hour, white coat on, stethoscope around his neck. I look up from my library book and he flashes his lifetime membership. I smile, happy to see him, and he nods politely as he walks over to the newer exhibits. He tries to appear interested, but I know what he has come here to see. It is always the same thing. The spoons. On the second floor of the museum, there is a small exhibit in the permanent collection consisting of more than 400 spoons. They are simply presented attached to glass-fronted corkboards like butterflies on display. Although some of those spoons seem quite old, genuine antiques, they are mostly your standard variety of silverware, all different patterns. They are ordinary enough to make you wonder why someone collected them, but there are so many that you understand there was a very specific, very important reason that someone did it. But that person is dead, and the spoons are here, and the doctor stands in front of them, curious. Can I tell you a story? The day I finished this book, I went out to dinner with a friend and some of her friends. I eventually became close to those people, but at that time, this was probably like the second or third time I was meeting them, so like they didn't know me well back then. And I just finished this book, and I don't know what prompted me. I couldn't keep it in my brain anymore, and so I just unprompted told the whole table the entire plot of the spoon story. I couldn't help it. I just had to tell them the plot. And afterwards, one of them at the end of dinner said, "Thank you for the spoon story." That person was Chelsea, and she's been featured on the channel before. And isn't that so sweet that she was willing to deal with my bullshit even back then? I don't need to tell you the plot of the spoon story, but the point is that like a fascination with something you can't explain is a deeply relatable experience. For me. Also, like, this deep, like, fascination I can't explain. This is, like, how I feel about Kevin. And that's the most parasocial thing I've ever said. I'm so glad that I've never met him, because I so would not be cool about it. I hope that Kevin never finds this video, because he's gonna think I'm the oddest person in the world. And I don't think that he would like me very much. I think he would think that I was weird. But it's okay, you don't have to meet your heroes. So I would say that I'm very picky about my short story collections nowadays, and I'm gonna admit that like not all of the stories in this collection are winners, but I think my favorites are the Spoon story, which is called The Museum of Whatnot, The Grand Stand-In, and there's a story about a baby with teeth. Aren't you so lucky to have me? Aren't you so lucky that someone has already like paved this path for you and knows all the good stuff about Kevin Wilson that you can just skip through? You don't have to shift through like the duds of short stories that he has in this book. You could just go straight to the good parts. So up next on the list is his second short story collection, Baby You're Gonna Be Mine. This is kind of optional reading. To be honest, it's my least favorite of his books. However, it's not that it's bad, it's just not my preferred set of stories. This particular set of stories focuses more on themes of stuckness. That's another recurring theme in his books. It's just that I personally relate more to the feelings of fixation present in Telling to Descend to Earth, which is why I latched onto that anthology more. So yeah, so it's a matter of personal preference. However, Wildfire Johnny is objectively the best thing that Kevin Wilson has ever written. It is the story of a razor blade that supposedly grants a user the ability to travel through time if only they are willing to slit their own throat in order to do so. It's graphic. Yeah, it's graphic. It's graphic. So obviously, don't read that story if that's not something that you need in your life right now. But it is the best short story he's ever written. I think about that story all the time. For me, a great short story is one that poses a really complicated question and leaves you with an unsatisfying answer, but unsatisfying in a way that's haunting to you. And you know, to understand what I mean, you're just gonna have to read the damn story. So now we're on the next novel, Perfect Little World, and I'm gonna say this is optional reading. You absolutely don't have to read this. I really liked it when I first read it, but in retrospect, I actually think it's the least strong of his works. Okay, so stick with me because this plot is a journey. So we start off with a high school senior named Izzy, who, when the book begins, has recently discovered that she is pregnant with her art teacher's baby. By the way, this is not going to be the first time that a student-teacher relationship comes up in Kevin Wilson's extended works. Izzy doesn't have a lot of options. Her family doesn't have a lot of money, and her father is emotionally checked out. And so when she's approached to take part in a research study with an unconventional premise, even though Izzy is wary of this premise, she is inclined to take it because she recognizes that she doesn't have a lot of other options and she wants her kid to have like a financially stable life at the very least. The study is this: there are 10 families that will be living together on a commune, basically. You know, these 10 families will be raising their children together, and those children from birth will consider each other siblings. They will consider these 20 parental figures around them all equally as their parents. And the theory is having this like love and support from a community will lead to better just outcomes in general for the children and parents because they have so much support. That's the thesis. That is the hypothesis of the study. When Izzy is approached for the study, she is hesitant about it. She's not sure how she feels about her child not belonging fully to herself. She's not sure about being asked to love a stranger's baby just as strongly. But again, she recognizes that this is the best deal that she's going to get, and so she takes it and she takes part in the study, and thus the book documents the next several years over which this research unfolds. Naturally, this utopian pitch, this idea of a perfect little world, ayo, is not real in practice. There is a lot of dysfunction underneath the surface, behind the scenes, and particularly within the researchers conducting the study themselves. You're just waiting for like the domino that will fall and cause a chain reaction that dismantles the whole thing. I really like the story in concept. Kevin is really good at writing like a character that is trying their best to hold it together. Like that and a dysfunctional family is what Kevin lives and breathes. And so like seeing like these dysfunctional family dynamics on display is just so fascinating. However, I do think that he could have gone deeper. It really only focuses on Izzy and one other character, the head researcher. And the head researcher has a very fascinating fucked up life in a way that only Kevin Wilson could have written. Like the fucked upness of this poor man is so specific, and it could only have come from the mind of Kevin Wilson. That being said, I wish that he had given that sort of love and character development to all of his characters in the story. I wish that instead of 10 families, we had pared it down to maybe like 4, so that way we could like give each family unit like something weird, like something like rich to explore in their character. I also think that maybe Kevin's perspective as a cis heterosexual man is failing him here because he can't really pull from other perspectives and other types of families. So I think that like character development wise, it's lacking. It just didn't live up to the potential I wanted to. I really liked it when I first read it, but in retrospect, and now that I have like kind of like the breadth of his works laid out in front of me, I'm less impressed with it. It was an interesting concept. It's not Kevin's strongest book, but it is still fun. I like the relationship between Izzy and the head researcher. It is so funny to me because this would absolutely be so illegal in real life, but they are the healthiest relationship I've ever seen in a Kevin Wilson novel. Like, I ship them. Like, I really like them as a couple. It's so funny because that's so illegal. That's so illegal for them to date. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this book. You don't have to read that one. I just felt the need to mention it before we get to the last one. So you're at the final book in the Kevin Wilson saga. This is the most recent one that he has published, you know, exempting the book that is coming out this year. Instead of giving you a synopsis first, I'm going to read out loud to you the opening chapter of the book. It's 1 a.m. I answered the phone, and there was a woman's voice on the other end, a voice I didn't recognize. "Is this Frances Budge?" she asked, and I was certain it was a telemarketer because no one called me Frances. I said, "I'm sorry, but I'm not interested," and started to hang up, but the woman, understanding I was done with her, tried her best to pull me in. "The Edge is a shantytown filled with gold seekers," she said, her voice rising in pitch, and I froze. I nearly dropped the phone, and together, in harmony, we both completed the phrase. "We are fugitives, and the law is skinny with hunger for us." So if you're feeling a weird sense of deja vu, I want you to chase that feeling. Because you're right to feel that way. We live on the edge, a shanty town filled with gold seekers. We are fugitives, and the law is skinny with hunger for us. You thought I was just sharing excerpts from my favorite book. No, it was foreshadowing! You understand why I needed to make this video? It's because I read this opening chapter, and I thought that I was hallucinating. Because surely Kevin didn't use the exact same line twice. And you're like, Kevin, but why? Like, did you think that no one else would have read the Family Fang? And you have these questions, but you have no one to discuss it with. You have no one. You have no one that you can call to be like, hey, did you read the first chapter of Now Is Not the Time to Panic? And does it sound oddly familiar to you? Like, you can't be like, hey, can you have your copy of the Family Fang on file, and can you read aloud the shanty line again to me? Like, you have no one, you have no one, you have no one to talk about this with. No one in the world. It's certainly not the most annoying thing in the world, but it certainly is annoying. Anyway, I'm now going to tell you the plot of Now Is Not the Time to Panic. Okay, so Now Is Not the Time to Panic flashes back to 2 teenagers. Frankie, the woman you met in chapter 1, and Zeke, who is a teenage boy that she meets for the summer, and they become fast friends. They're so bored in this small town where nothing in particular happens. All they have is each other and a passion for creating art. Zeke draws, and Frankie is an aspiring writer. They create, kind of just out of their shared imagination, a phrase. The edge is a shanty town filled with gold seekers. We are fugitives, and the law is skinny with hunger for us. The phrase means nothing. It doesn't mean anything, but the sound of it, the emotion of it, evokes something kind of deep inside them. It inspires them to create a piece of artwork that they print out and plaster their town with photocopies of. No one in this town understands this phrase. They don't know what it means. Frankie and Zeke know in their hearts it means nothing. This phrase and this poster becomes a big mystery in the town because they don't understand what it means. And what starts off as a thing that was just like a piece of expression that these teenagers couldn't explain just spirals out of control and takes on a life of its own, and it starts a panic within their small town. And the story is about basically like going back and forth between the past when Frankie and Z create this piece of art and the present when years afterwards, after Frankie and Zeke had not spoken in years and moved on from it, this great mystery of the 1996 Coalfield Panic comes back into Frankie's life. I think this book captures virality in its earliest form, you know, considering this is like pre-internet, and I think it captures that theme that is often present in Kevin's works when he talks about art, about creating something and having it kind of be outside of your control and kind of having other people have a reaction to it that's not the same as your own reaction to it. So the inspiration for this book started years and years and years ago. When Kevin was in college, one of his jobs was he was digitizing this health manual, I think it was. Like, imagine a very boring, very technical manual. And to keep his brain from exploding from boredom, he would slip in weird little cryptic lines just sporadically through this manual. One night he was asking like his roommates for ideas, and his friend Eric came up with this line, almost verbatim. Like Kevin only ended up changing like 1 or 2 words to make it flow better, but for the most part it is the same. And this line became a mantra for him. It was something that he would repeat over and over. It was something that oddly gave him comfort despite how depressing the sentiment is when you think about it for a little bit. The edge is a shantytown filled with gold seekers. We are fugitives and the law is skinny with hunger for us. He just liked the rhythm of it. You know, he put this line into the Family Fang, and I guess even years later it wasn't enough, and he needed the line back, and so he put it into this new novel and crafted an entire story around 2 people and a town, a whole fictional society that becomes obsessed with this phrase without understanding why it touches an emotional core for them. Knowing the backstory of this line makes me really emotional because I think that it's a really beautiful tribute to Eric. When I read certain parts of the book, I feel like the love for this line. I feel the emotion of Kevin Wilson carrying this line with him for years throughout his life, and finally creating like a way to share his fascination with it with the world and have them care about it too. And I just find that like really beautiful. I'm gonna read out to you a section. This is gonna be kind of long. Hopefully editing Jay can cut it down, but it's gonna be a minute. So this is a conversation between Zeke and Frankie. They're trying to create something. His eyes were twinkling like some kind of cartoon, so black that light was sparkling off his pupils. Don't even think about it, just write something. I can't do that, I said. I felt like I couldn't match his enthusiasm and I was a failure because of it. I can't just write something. Yes, you can, he said. You're an amazing writer. Just here. He grabbed a piece of paper and put it in front of me. Just write whatever comes to you. About what? I asked, almost crying now. About Coldfield? About this town? About your life? About your stupid fucking dad? About whatever you want. I picked up a pencil and took a deep breath, like I was trying to suck up every word in the English language, and I started tapping the paper, making these little tiny dots. Tap, 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 tap. And I just kept tapping, and I tried. I thought about the book I was writing, The Girl Criminal Mastermind. Her name was Evie Fastaben. She was always calling her hideout this little abandoned shack in the woods, the Edge. It was her code name for when she wanted to do crimes. I need to go to the Edge, she'd announce, and then she'd ride her bike to the woods, to this rickety shed, where she had a gun wrapped up in an old t-shirt. The Edge, I thought, the Edge. And then I wrote, the Edge is a shantytown. And I took another deep breath, realized I hadn't been breathing the whole time. Zeke touched my shoulder. Are you okay? He asked, but I was already writing more, filled with gold seekers. Zeke looked over my shoulder at the paper. Okay, that's kind of cool, he said. I like that. We are fugitives, I wrote. There was this little voice in my head, and it was telling me what to write down. And I knew that this little voice, this tiny, insistent voice, was not God, and it wasn't some muse, and it wasn't anyone in the world except for me. This voice was my voice, and it wasn't finished. The Edge is a shantytown filled with gold seekers. We are fugitives, and the law is skinny with hunger for us. And then the voice was gone, and I finally read what was on the page. We are fugitives, I said to Zeke, smiling. I was starting to laugh, a little hiccup of a laugh. We are fugitives? I asked him. And the law is skinny with hunger for us, he said, smiling. It didn't make a bit of sense. It meant nothing, but Zeke understood. That was all that mattered to me. It was the greatest thing I'd ever written. I knew it right then. It sounded so perfect to my ears. Zeke and I crouched down on the hard floor of the garage, said the phrase again, and then again, and then again, until it became a code. It became a code for everything that we'd ever want. If we met up again in 50 years, we could say that exact phrase and we know who we were. Can I kiss you? Zeke asked. You can kiss me, I said. And so we kissed. And I felt the tiniest little tip of his tongue touch my teeth, and it made me shiver. And the whole time we kissed, I kept thinking, we are fugitives, we are fugitives, we are fugitives. And I knew that the law, whatever the fuck that was skinny with hunger for us. Such a good line. I think that this is just an incredible tribute to your friend. Having this backstory makes the story richer, but you don't need to know the backstory in order to have an emotional attachment to this book. I think that if you can relate to creating art and wanting to share it with the world, you can relate to kind of like the hope that it will matter to someone the way it matters to you, and also the like reality of like what happens when the art becomes so big that it is beyond your control and you're not able to control the narrative around it and what other people take away from it. I think it's probably his second best work. I think Nothing to See Here is first, and then Now Is Not the Time to Panic is second. Well, I take that back. Wildfire Johnny is first, then Nothing to See Here, then Now Is Not the Time to Panic. So those are all the books that Kevin Wilson has published at the time of filming. I hope that I convince you to read the books. I hope that this was a good pitch to you. Thank you for making it this far. We're not done yet, okay? We're not done yet, so don't log off the video yet. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that like I was able to share something like lovely with you about my favorite author. At least piqued your curiosity to read his book for yourself. Like, that being said, since I'm calling this my magnum opus, I want this to be literally everything I've ever wanted to say about Kevin, okay? So I want to leave no stone unturned. I really need to talk about this with you because, like, you know what's really annoying about having Kevin Wilson as your favorite author and having no one to discuss it with? Look, so we talked about, like, Kevin Wilson returns to a lot of the same themes in his books, and listen, there's no delicate way to say this, but I want to talk about Kevin's weird incest thing. I want to talk about Kevin's weird fascination with incest because, like, I can't. There's no one else I can talk about this with. Do you know what it's like to be a Kevin Wilson fan? Because it's so frustrating. Because you read all of his books and you start to notice. Kevin has written 6 books, okay? And in 4 out of the 6 books, there is like the tiniest bit of incest in it, and it's so weird and it's so specific, and you're like, why? And you know, I debated even talking about this in the video because honestly, I want to meet Kevin someday. I want to meet Kevin and I want to have like a lovely, normal, delightful chat with Kevin. And I really don't want him to know that this video exists before that happens. But Kevin's not like a big author, okay? He's not Suzanne Collins. So it's entirely possible that Kevin Wilson like Googles himself. Like, I'm gonna come up and he's gonna watch me talk about this, and then one day I'm gonna meet him and he's gonna, and Kevin, I promise, Kevin, when we meet in person, I promise I'm gonna be so normal. I'm gonna be so normal and I'm not gonna ask you any questions about your weird incest thing. But why? So Kevin has written 6 books, right? And in 4 of them, there's like, dare I say, negligible amount of incest in it. You would think that if it's negligible, you wouldn't have to mention it. But it's so hyper-specific. And you're like, what's going on? What's happening? Here's the thing. The siblings kiss in the Family Fang. On its own, it's no problem, okay? It made sense in the context of the story. Children, subversive art performer parents. I totally get it. No problem. No problem, Kevin. It's not weird. It's not a problem. Then you read Tumbling to Center to Earth, and there's like there's just like one sentence that mentions siblings kissing. You're like, it's interesting that it happened twice, but we're gonna move on. And then you read Nothing to See Here, and no incest. No incest, no problem. Awesome. And then in Perfect Little World, one of the supporting characters is an author who publishes a book. In that book, that protagonist is like a rich woman whose family all dies in a freak accident, and to cope with her loneliness, she hires like actors to play her family members, and then she starts to fall in love with the actor that plays her brother. You see what I mean? That's not even the plot of Perfect Little World. That's the plot of a book that was published within Perfect Little World. Do you understand what I mean? And you know what? Come here. Like, Kevin, you know what? I feel like I've earned the right to talk about this. It is 1:43 in the morning, Kevin. Do you know how long I've been talking about your books? Do you know how long I've been praising you and the impact you've had on my life? When you put out, like, your work publicly into the world, I have the right to comment on it. And when you include weird little incest Easter eggs in your collected works, I also have the right to comment on that. So we're gonna read aloud this. What story was it? It was like the weird one. Okay, I'm gonna read this line to you. Now in her office, she clicked on the music video for Baby, You're Gonna Be Mine. And she watched her son strum his guitar and then sang in a dreamlike smooth voice. Baby, you're gonna be mine. We can leave all the sadness behind. Baby, you're gonna be mine until the end of time. He had on a baby blue t-shirt that had the word Gina in black block letters printed upside down. Where'd you get that shirt? She had asked him the first time she had seen the video. I had it made, he said. I spent my own money to have it made. Why? She asked him. 'Cause I love you. 'Cause it's a secret just for you, he said, smiling. What is that about? You understand what I'm talking about? In the Family Fang, the siblings actually kiss. And somehow, this is more incestuous than that. Why? Look, I'm just gonna say, again, I promise I'm never gonna bring this up to Kevin. I don't have any interest in asking Kevin about it, but especially for you guys, I'm convincing you guys to join the Kevin Wilson fan club, and you're gonna notice. You're gonna start to notice this pattern. Okay, I got it out. That's really all I wanted to vent to you guys. That's all I really wanted. Are there any final thoughts? We have 15% battery life, and it's 2 in the morning. It's 2 in the morning. I'm on 15% battery life. What else can I say? So we don't end on the weird incest thing. You know, I made it clear that I really like Kevin's books. I really love his writing style. I love most of the topics that he covers. I love the way he talks about art. Also, like, Rosica at the Midnight Reader also made this comparison that I never thought about until she said it. But Kevin Wilson is very similar to John Green in the sense that he is also a straight white man from the Midwest who also has a penchant for like reflective sentences about life, about people, about art. So I would say if you also are a John Green fan, you would probably like Kevin Wilson's works. I do think that at the very least, like, their writing styles are similar. I think that the same things I like about Kevin are the same things I like about John Green's writing style. I find them both to be rhythmic and reflective. And yeah, we did it. We did it. We have finished our magnum opus, which is the Kevin Wilson video. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. We don't know how much percent battery we have, so we better wrap this up, but thank you for watching. I really appreciate you sitting through this video about an author you've never heard about and giving me the time of day. I had a lot of fun creating this video. I hope you had a lot of fun watching it, and I hope you enjoy your next Kevin Wilson novel. All right. Thank you.